Welcome back to the Dr. Supercoach podcast. You're on once again with Chizo. Dr. Supercoach podcast, once again powered by our lovely partners at Code Sports. In celebration of the Olympics getting into the second week, we thought we would bring back the gold medalist for highest podcast finisher on the Dr. Supercoach podcast. That is myself, and I'm joined by Pig, who is bringing in the silver medal tonight. Mate, how you going?
I'm very, very well. Nice little pat yourself on the back there. Nice little Sean Darcy tribute as well. Every time we associate your finish, we've got to give Sean Darcy his little shout out.
Mate, you could just call me legendary because I'm going to be milking this until the cows come home, mate. It's I'm going to find a way to weasel this into every podcast that I'm on, mate. Very, very exciting to be back on with you. I've got some news that Pistol got sick of hearing your voice and he's called in sick last moment, and we've just run around the house getting everything ready, and I'm here and we're going to talk some Supercoach. Apparently that's still going for some people that have trades. How did your week go?
Yeah, it was pretty solid. It was, I guess, parish, 24.55, which I guess did the job, didn't really move me up or down. I've just been hovering for the entire season pretty much, but it was at least a step in the right direction from last week. I got onto that Bont 182 VC, as a lot of people did, so that always sets the week up nice. I had a couple of people that scored 30s as premiums in my team and then got injured, looking at Sam De Koning and Charlie Curnow. So,
but they're not. They're only one premium in that sentence.
Yeah, Sam was a rookie a couple of years ago, but yeah. That was they were the two, I guess, that let me down. Oh, maybe Luke Jackson as well. He was not very good. But
I genuinely thought he was injured. I was furiously updating the AFL app, being like, it doesn't say injured, but he clearly must be.
Yeah, but then some of my uniques fired, like Will Powell with a 131, LDU with a 141. So I had some good. Nank with a 150.
Yeah.
So I had some good high end stuff, but I just had a few drag in the chain that stopped it being a nice score. But you know, we're towards the end of the season. I've got no trades left. It's literally just about trying to get a captain to differentiate yourself at the minute.
Yeah.
You had a good one?
25-18, which was enough to somehow make it through to a couple finals in my leagues.
Lovely.
Of those that matter, I knocked JB out of the bottom half finals in Rivalry League North. And then what else? I knocked Marshall out in the South, and then I knocked JB out of the real finals in the East, and somehow my crippled team made it snuck into the prelim finals after forcing Meso, who's been having an absolute killer year, to have to go into the best of the rest after beating him this week. So basically what I'm finding out is my team is actually half decent when I get them all back from injury. I only had one premium missing this week from my side, so that was certainly gave me a little bit of a pep in my step, Pig. So I'm very happy with that. I tell you what though, that Bont 182 was all you're doing. I opened up the Slack and I was like, "What's Pig recommending?" He's recommending Bont into Shees. Easy, done. Don't even need to check it. Bang bang, locked it in.
Well, happy to take the praise, but I reckon 90% of Supercoach should have had the VC on him. So, but you know, I'll claim it.
Cool. I'm just saying that maybe I wouldn't have come up with it without you. So I'm just saying thanks.
Very good.
We do actually have some housekeeping to go through before we get into some of the topics. We do have a new sign up on Patreon, and that is Zoe. Zoe, thank you for joining. Came in hot into the chat and said joining this late in the season wasn't even her worst Supercoach decision for the year. So we appreciate you joining and the humility and becoming part of the group. It's been fantastic. And
yeah, welcome.
We also have a donation over on the Cancel Council. Cancer. Oh my God, Mark.
The CC.
Yes. I've had too many CCs. Mark, via old school email, because he still emails me back and forth. We got this chain that's been going since 2016 and we're keeping it going. A few pennies for Chizo's thoughts. Thanks as always. Thanks, Mark. Thank you for everyone that has donated so far in the 2024 season. Well over the 30K goal that we set at the beginning of the year. So thank you to everyone that's been a part of that. We're into the final 8 teams of the Dr. Supercoach Cup. That's coming down to the wire as well. Unfortunately, previous overall winner M finally got knocked out this week, so we're in for some new names to take home some silverware. Pig, a lot of the information that we wish we would have going into this podcast in terms of like injuries to guys in your side, we haven't actually had released yet. I'm talking of the likes of Kerno and SDK that put up pretty poor scores over the weekend. So we'd love to be giving some more specific advice on that, but we're going to have to wait for the injury report. Do you have any early thoughts about how they might turn out?
No, I don't really. I'm just kind of holding my breath, seeing if they're playing. Like, I've got 0 trades, so there's nothing I'm doing. I'm just copying donuts if SDK's out. Kerno, a lot of people have forward line cover, whether it's Dowling or someone like that, so maybe you'd be okay there. But look, this is where guys that have saved 2 or 3 trades to now can really start making a leg up, because if Kerno is out for 3 weeks, or 2 or 1 even, and people are having to field Dowling and he just got a 44, if you can trade that and then somehow get that to Rankin or something, who's coming back this week, then that's where you make up a lot of points really quickly. So that's why we've talked about saving our trades. We've talked about doing it. We haven't done it. We've done the opposite of it and used them weeks ago. But for those that have trades, like, this is where you really start climbing quickly.
Yeah. And just filtering by the top 10% of coaches, so top 20K is really the pointy end that we concentrate on. Kerno's owned by 34% of the competition, so it is quite a large whack of coaches that did take a punt on him this year. So it's going to be sort of pressing. And if you're someone that's like in my boat that's already holding Fisher and Big Force to play Dowling, we're really hoping that Kruger comes back from his head knock from a few weeks ago to miraculously recover just in time for when we need to cover another donut. So that's another one to keep an eye on. Pig.
He'll be interesting, because I'm not certain if he does with Mason Cox back now, but that might be a bit more of a question for Collingwood fans whether they'd play all 3. But yeah, Kruger's not necessarily someone I'd hold my breath for, I think.
Yeah. And luckily there's only 0.3% of coaches with Sam de Koning in their team. Some in the top 20K though, Pig, so that doesn't include you.
Hey, it does. Get out of it.
Drive by. So one of the questions that you did post to me that you've been asked a little bit, I think, on Twitter, Pig, was that with 3 rounds remaining, there are a couple of bespoke questions where players are not under that much pressure injury-wise. They have 3 trades. They're sort of coming into this week saying, well, am I supposed to do something with them? Do you have any thoughts on, should they be spending up, or are you still holding one for the final round? What's your thoughts there?
Yeah, look, I think now, especially if you're playing for leagues, you might as well use them. Like, you got to try and get a win this week to progress. Trying to get a win next week as well. So, look, if someone has 3 trades, I'd be pretty happy probably using 2 to just try and get the best team available for this week, because, if you lose this week, then it's all out the window and you're just sitting there with 3 trades, like, what the hell for?
Yeah.
I'd still like to definitely keep 1 if you're playing for leagues, because a lot can happen in the last 3 weeks. So, I mean, if you get to just before round 24 and you've still got 1 trade, that's all good, because you can do like a sideways to just pick up someone who's up for a 1-week spike score kind of thing. So
yeah.
So I'd definitely keep 1, but yeah, I'd use the rest now to try and get the best team available to try and get you through finals.
And I think this is probably part of the year where even players that have been playing rank up until this point are now somewhat looking with a league perspective. I had a question last week from Lou Baggers in Slack that was like, this week is a do or die, that being last week, but there's 4 weeks left in the season. Do I trade this week to try and get the best score I can to win this week, or but maybe to the detriment in coming weeks, or am I looking for someone that's going to score the most points over the last month? And I think you've summed it up perfectly. Like, you don't really want to be sitting on your hands and losing trying to be a little bit conservative, like in a 50-50 situation. And he was tossing up between Dunkley and LDU. LDU against the Tigers was probably going to have the highest spike score. But arguably the form that Dunkley's been in the back half of the year, like he might over the course of 4 weeks have outscored LDU, and that was the decision that he was ultimately pressed with. I think he went Dunkley in the end, and I'm not exactly sure whether he got over the line, but that's an example of using that trade to try and get things done and trying to get another premium in your side, but still somehow looking for the month's worth of points as opposed to a 1 week just get me across the line, which and a 142 from LDU would have been absolutely preferable.
Yeah, and it's definitely a balance. Like there will be some people who don't care about legs at all, and they're just playing fully for rank. So in that case, you don't have to spend those 2 trades right now. You could kind of save one for next week and then one for the final week, kind of thing. So it does depend what your goals are a little bit. Yeah.
Cool. Mate, that was the main question that I did have to ask. We'll jump into some podcast questions. You put out the shout out earlier today to try and get some comments in there. We'll go to Stefan. His first question is it worth moving on Jackson to another forward option, losing that ruck cover but potentially gaining points over the remaining 3 weeks, not having to play Spud Jackson?
This one is really interesting because I did buy him like thinking he would score a bit average, but for the ruck cover. And I'm not sure if I regret it or if I'm happy with it. I don't really know where I sit with it. So if you have
on the fence by the sounds of things.
Yeah, if you have multiple trades, like let's say if this is your last trade, I wouldn't do it because then like how you're covering your 2 ruckmen, that's what Jackson's there for.
Yeah.
But if you do have 2 or 3 trades left, this is probably a good time to get rid of those underperformers, and maybe Jackson is that guy. So you could use, say, your second last trade to do that. And then if an injury does happen to whoever your ruckman is, then you can literally just trade them for another ruckman. So that's where I'd sit with that. I wouldn't do it with your last trade. But if you got a few, I probably would.
Yeah, and in the top 20K, Jackson's owned by 77% of the competition as well. So you can look at it three ways. Now I'm going to have to come up. I was going to say 2, but now I have to come up with a third way to look at it.
What's the third way?
The first way to look at it is you can get the jump up on the competition by switching to someone that outscores Jackson. You can look at it the second way, that you're probably not going to be hurt as much in head-to-heads because most people are going to own him. And the third way is you could look at it obliquely, like the guy that ran in the top the men's 100 meter.
Bleakly or obliquely?
Oblique is an.
That was a good first name.
Is an angle. I said it was better than decubitus, which is also a name for an X-ray projection like an oblique is. That's a very niche joke just for me.
Well, I hope you enjoyed it.
And I laughed at it,
back.
so that was great. Only Benny Buzzboy and Slack appreciated it. Yeah, look, I wouldn't be. I'm on the same lines as you. I wouldn't be spending that last trade to move Jackson on because he's still your cover. You've still got 2 rounds after this one to get through, and we all know, the amount of carnage that we've had this year, and that trade could be vital. I guess the thing for me is not a whole lot has really changed from what our expectations are on Jackson either. Like, he's got a 5-round average of 91, 3-round average of 73. I mean, like, it's not great, but it is pretty much what we expected from his fluctuations with Sean Darcy in there. So, if these are your thoughts that you're having now, why didn't you trade him when Sean Darcy came back? Because you knew this is what you were purchasing, and you're purchasing the cover more than anything else. So, the question being, at what point do you take the Hail Mary and get rid of that cover, trying to get the most points as possible? Maybe it does have a little bit of league bias when it comes to that question, but if I had a trade, I'd still be taking it maybe another week before I take that chance, because let's say if God forbid there's an injury to one of our main ruckmen and you need Jackson, 2 weeks is probably too much of an impact to your side. You can, like, rank wise, maybe you can put up with 1 week without cover, but yeah, I'd be waiting at least another week before I pulled something like that. Pig, do you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. And look, Jackson could come out and do a 105 this week, and then we're not even talking about it.
Yeah. exactly. No, people will still talk about it. Next question. For those with 2 trades left, is there any value in doing a 1 up, 1 down of, say, Kruger and Dowling to get an extra premium, or keep the trades for potential injuries? Pig, this is really tough. I'm not even sure you can do much with that sort of cash, can you? You got 140 with Kruger and 330. What are you purchasing, do you reckon? Maybe a 470, maybe 500k player if you've got the cash, like say 30, 40 cash in the bank?
And this question also kind of doesn't say if they'll be on field or not. I'm guessing they're not.
Yeah, these sound like 2 bench players, right?
Yeah, so if you're doing that to get a 23rd premium on your bench, no, I definitely would not be doing that.
Yeah.
Just keep those 2 trades for potential injuries because there's still 3 weeks left. It's very likely someone's going to get injured and then you'll just want to sideways them. I think that's a much better way than having a 23rd premium that will be quite a bit cheaper, like you said, not even a great 23rd.
Yeah.
And also maybe only can cover 1 or 2 lines, whereas the trades can cover all the lines.
Yeah, and here's a question. A lot of us that are playing the likes of Dowling on field, so not a 23rd premium as to your statement there, are like someone like me that has Fisher. And in that case, you're just much better off just trading Fisher, aren't you, and keeping a trade in the bank rather than
absolutely
Kruger and Dowling out and then keeping an injured Fisher. So I don't think there's many scenarios where I'd be doing that, unless, for example, your final upgrade. So this is a really niche question. I'm left with 65k in the bank because the most expensive forward that I could purchase with my final trade was Jai Simpkin. It was quite like literally that was the most expensive. There's this huge chasm that I owned all those forwards, like the Jacksons and the Fisher that were in the 450 to 500 range. If you had like 65k like I did, you could potentially get like a 525 plus kind of range, but even then you're still not purchasing anything incredible for that final position if it's on field for you either.
Yeah, maybe you're getting like a Dylan Moore or someone like that.
Oh, I'd love Dylan Moore.
That'd be great, but also like not as a 23rd because he only covers 1 position. I'd just hold those traits. And use them to sideways an injury.
Yep. Stefan's got a question 3. Are the KFC vouchers still a thing for the top 1K? Sadly, Steph, that sponsorship is not around anymore. We looked it up today, and there's nothing for the top 1K this year, which seems absurd. It seems like nothing. Like you got the top 10, and that's it, which is really sad, Pig.
Yeah, Pistol and I spoke about this a few weeks ago, and even compared it to AFL Fantasy, where they have the top 100 get a hat, and that's really cool. Following some of their content creators that are like 200 ranked or 150 ranked, and their chase for the hat is actually quite achievable, and that's really cool to see.
Yeah.
So that's something that SuperCoach, who knows, they might look at it in the future, but having prizes for the top 10 is, I guess, quite exclusive. Doesn't give people much to fight for at the end of the year.
Exactly. And speaking from someone that's had to try and cash one in before, it's actually really difficult. I found it almost impossible to try and cash in this AFL KFC voucher in Far North Queensland, where the only sports they know is NRL and crocodile wrestling.
Yeah. They'd look at you. You get the 13-year-old work experience kid, and they think,
literally, I had to ask for a manager. I was like, no, this is genuine. I'm not pulling your leg here. This is a real thing. We've got another question. Any updates on JB's internet, Pig? I'm pretty sure he's stuck his feet up, pretending he's got no internet because he didn't want to produce content at the end of the year. He's loving his Wednesday Rivalry League podcast content that he puts out, and he sees how well you and Pistol have been going, Pig, and he's just more than happy to hand pass it off to you.
Look, he's riding the wave. He is. He's earned it for a while, but we'll put him back to work at some stage.
Oh, mate, pre-season, he's going to be absolutely pumping some stuff out this year now that we don't have all that off-field dramas that we had. Worse than Clary Oliver in the preseason, our early 2024 was. Smitty has some questions here, Pig. We're actually getting close to the end of the questions. Playing for leagues, A, trade 2 rookies to get Rankin and keep D7 M9 Loop Primo, 1 trade remaining. So that scenario that we had before, but you still have an extra trade remaining. Get a 23rd and have 1 trade left over.
Well, I think he's saying, should I do A, B, or C? So,
oh my God. Okay, yep,
so
sure. Okay,
I'll say I like A, but do you want to read the other?
Yeah, okay. So he's playing for leagues.
Yeah.
Trade 2 rookies to get Rankin and keep his mid-defense Loop Primo. B, trade D7 M9 Primo to Rankin, giving him 2 trades remaining. Or C, trade D7 M9 Primo to Rankin and trade a speculative on-field Primo to a top liner. 1 trade remaining. How have you still got trades remaining and entertaining any of these 3 options? What is going on, Smitty?
Smitty's got 3 trades left.
He's got 3 trades and 23 premiums. What?
Well, I think he's done well, and he's obviously kept those 3 trades focusing on league. I would say, a little bit like I said before, I'd definitely keep 1. You don't have a boost, so you have to keep 1.
Yeah.
But keep 1 for the next remaining weeks. But I'd just do whatever you can to get the most points and win this week, which might be C.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Trading his 23rd Primo to get Rankin and trade a speculative on-field Primo to a top liner. So he's upgrading his 22nd and 23rd to Rankin and a top liner. How do you have the cash to do this, bro?
I really like that. The only question I kind of got is that speculative guy, are you actually getting to a proper top liner like a Butters or something, or are you settling for like a Rao?
Speculative, I'm assuming, means Rao or Oliver.
Yeah, so if it's like getting them to Butters, just as an example, and also then getting your 23rd to Rankin, then that's awesome. I'd love that, and it still leaves you 1 trade for the next 2 weeks. And
I think that this is a bunch of bunk. So he's going to trade his 23rd player to a $570,000 Isaac Rankin and have enough money to trade Oliver to a top liner.
Yeah, he must have 300,000 in the bank.
What is going on? 300k and 3 trades, Smitty. We need you to submit your team for a live analysis on the podcast next week, because we're going to be doing a deep dive into how you did this and when you're starting your podcast, because you clearly planned this year better than I did.
Yeah. if that's possible, do say. We like.
Yeah, if you have 600k in the bank, definitely buy all of the top mids.
And like the summary for others that aren't in this luxury position is kind of like I said, leave 1 trade for the next 2 weeks, but burn the rest of them to win this week.
Burn them down. Yeah, exactly. Dirty Schnitches says, what is an appropriate punishment for Jim McKay coming last in our keeper league, Pig? What is a good punishment for last in a league?
Well, this is good because I'm in this league.
I've got some ideas. Oh, okay, you're actually throwing proper chat here.
I'm in this league, and I was coming last until the last week when I had a wicked week, and then Jim flunked it and dropped below me. So I was actually petitioning for there to be no punishments, but now that Jim has it, I'm all for this.
Wow.
So there's some good ones. Like I really like the 24 hours in McDonald's, and every cheeseburger you eat takes an hour off the clock.
Right. So, okay. Yep.
So like if you're going to eat 10 cheeseburgers, then you've only got to stay there for 14 hours. A few others, you got to get a whole body wax.
Oh! Like even eyebrows and stuff?
Oh, maybe not something external, but like armpits and...
Wait, you want to wax internal?
Yeah, it's got to be the hurtful things.
Oh, okay.
Maybe you've got to, I don't know, buy yourself a last place loser trophy, or maybe you got to design and pay for the trophy for the winner.
You're going way harder than what I thought. My little list here that I came up with is just like basic stuff. I was going to say you've got to like record yourself doing a really bad karaoke or a stupid outfit or something like that you've got to wear for a day.
This is good.
I know Houston and Letdog do a photo shoot from Seinfeld. I'd never watched the show, but it's some dude spread eagled on the couch with tidy whities on. They've got to take a photo of them like that and post on Facebook or Insta every year that they come last, or combine the three: stupid outfit, photo shoot, karaoke. I was being tame. You want to wax the inside of people.
I don't want to wax them.
You said. I clarified it.
I'm not the waxer.
Inside.
I'm not doing the waxing, but they have to go through some pain.
Yeah, sure.
There's also, I think if you guys know each other, like if it's for this league, most of us haven't met, but when you're actually playing against your friends, there's some fun things you can do, like kind of a dress up like, I don't know, Borat or Ronald McDonald or something when you're doing your live draft or things like that. There's some cool things you can do when you know each other.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you're getting arrested in Macca's dressed up as Borat in his mankini trying to do the cheeseburger challenge.
Yeah, that's maybe not ideal.
Yeah.
But there's some good ones out there, and I know maybe Jim's a bit stiff because we never actually agreed to a punishment before the season. We're just coming up with it now that someone's lost.
Yeah.
So that's another little something we'll have to think about.
Being stiff and Macca's get you kicked out even quicker. Some questions. Some questions are all done, Pig, but I do have a couple of things I want to run past you and would love your thoughts. Reflecting on your first season, like genuinely like creating content, what is like, say, the biggest surprise that's popped out to you in terms of something that you didn't really expect or something that you learnt along the way? That's one of your big takeaways from the first year that you're kind of behind the mic and on YouTube and stuff, and like really putting in hours each week trying to produce the best content that you can.
Well, there's a couple of things. Maybe I could give like a positive and a learning.
Yeah. Obviously, dealing with pistol, that's the learning. Okay, now the positive.
Yeah. No, I love that, man. I love all of you guys. But so one of the learnings, Pistol and I briefly spoke about it last week, actually, and it was about just kind of having your team in the public eye and making silly decisions that you wouldn't have made that got you to this position. Like my previous year, I had a really good year playing a certain way. And then when I think the public's looking at my team and I think I've got to be really aggressive and think I've got to try and like score the most every week, I just made a lot of silly moves.
Yeah.
And people, like no one actually would look at my team. It's literally just the public perceived pressure and the fact that I've got to get on a podcast and say my score and say my rank each week kind of make like they just put a bit of extra perceived pressure.
Yeah.
And I did a few silly things that I wouldn't have done in terms of like trying to anti-pod Sheasel, things like that. Like just because I thought, if Sheasel goes down, then I'll be a leg up on everyone. And then that just hasn't worked, which last year I would have never done, just playing the way I play.
Yeah.
But, I'm going to learn. I've taken a lot of notes, going to learn a bit from that. One of the really positive things is just the community in general. Like we've got our awesome Dr. Supercoach Slack community. Just everyone's so positive about all the content we put out. But not even just in Slack, like in Twitter or on the YouTube comments, people are just generally very, very positive and saying, like they'll even say, like, this must have taken you a while to do, so thanks for putting in that time and this is really good. Or, on the YouTube, a lot of people have been commenting that they've, it's really helped them this year, and that gives me a kick, even when my team's not going that well personally, helping these people like that and just having people say, well done, thank you, things like that, but just... generally a very good Supercoach community we've got between Slack and YouTube and Twitter, I've found.
Yeah, that's good, man. I'm really glad that you're enjoying it, dude. Like, if I can speak from a personal perspective, it was probably 2022. So it's probably 2 years ago that the year after I had a successful year, I obviously have a lot of fun with it on the podcast and draw attention to it. And for me, it's like I'm happy that I achieved that, but it also came with the downside of expectation as well. That every subsequent year that you don't replicate that, the more it doesn't really faze me, but it's the more comments that I get from other people trying to bring me down and say, it's just I've got notifications turned off on Twitter for a reason. You know what I mean? Like I've just had DMs from no profile picture, bunch of numbers accounts that just make an account to talk so.
When you're in the public eye, people want to they just want to look at your rank, and if your rank's not at a certain amount, they'll just say, oh, that guy doesn't know what he's talking about. But it's the process of how you got there and what you were thinking about in terms of why you made that decision. The outcome doesn't always happen.
Yeah. But more to your point, I absolutely agree that the community that you surround yourself with, your chosen family is the one that should really matter. So that's like, if anyone has reached out to me on Twitter over the last 2 years, they know that I get back to them a couple days later, because I got to the point where I just hated seeing the notifications and stuff go off. So I really appreciate you opening up and saying your thoughts there, and the positivity that the community has given you is well deserved, because you've done phenomenal things for people this year so far, mate. So I appreciate that. I'll get another one for you. Who do you think has been the most underrated player for our teams in 2024? Could be someone that's had good DPP that's been useful for us, or maybe a ruck breakout that you predicted in the preseason that's now very close to being an R1. Is there one player that you're going to come away from 2024 saying, wow, this is the year of X?
There's probably a couple. The first one that springs to mind is Adam Treloar. Owned in 6% of teams. He's the 10th highest SuperCoach scorer this year. Looking at the stats, he's actually the Bulldogs' number one CBA mid. He gets quite a few more CBAs than Bont. He is their main guy this year. And I don't think we would have really predicted that, because it was Bont and Libba last year, and then Treloar was kind of number 3. But he's become number 1, very unique, and he's just doing it every week. And for some reason, not getting injured this year apart from that one laid out. So he's one. Tristan Cherry has absolutely been amazing. The 7th highest scorer in SuperCoach this year. I mean, I did my ruck breakout at the video at the start of the year, and he was one that I actually wasn't that hot on, because he just hadn't shown that he could accumulate disposals and marks enough to score well. But in that solo ruck role, he is getting the disposals, and he's kicking some goals, and he's getting tackles. So Tristan Cherry, I mean, the 7th highest is just incredible. And then I think we also just got to give a nod to Harry Sheasel as a second-year player being the 3rd highest scorer in SuperCoach. That's just I don't think Nick Dacos was the 2nd highest scorer in SuperCoach last 3rd. He might have been 3rd highest potentially. But he's doing those kind of Dacos numbers. So those 3 are ones that just really jump out at me. I mean, there's even guys like LDU and Cripps that started the year poorly and are now coming home like steam trains. But yeah, Treloar, Cherry and Sheasel, I think, are probably the surprise packets that have really just come out of nowhere to be uber premiums.
And let me counter that, or, let's reflect in the opposite direction. We've talked about, mistakes that we could learn from in the last podcast that you and I were on together about, maybe we don't jump off the Hayden Youngs and the Nick Martins in the same vein started slowly, but you look at the number 1 coach right now and he has both of them, and you have to assume he either had them to start with or had them early on, because a lot of the top 100 coaches do. Do you have any mistakes or letdowns from this year? Any players that for me, it'd be someone like a Tim English, particularly the way he started the year. You think, oh, this is just another carbon copy. He's another R1, R2. This is fantastic. He's very clearly one of the biggest letdowns for me this year. And that's not because I spent $700,000 getting him from Grundy, but that's obviously a component. But on totality, he is has shown flashes where he'll go mid 130s, and you're like, okay, he's back, and then the next week you put out a 60, and you're like, what is happening?
Yeah, and he's been someone that in the captain's videos, it's been actually reasonably easy to predict when he'll have the big score, because he only does it against a really, really bad ruckman.
Yeah.
So anytime he plays someone that's just even okay, he doesn't go so well. So that is frustrating, whereas last year he was just putting 130s on everyone. It didn't really matter. But for me, English, I mean, that's a definite disappointment, especially because I started Grundy and could have if I had just held Grundy the whole way, it would have been much better. Curnow has been disappointing, and I think it's just maybe it is that we used to have a motto of never select a key forward, or at least don't do it for half a season like we've tried to rely on Kerno for. So that is a little bit annoying that kind of he's given us a few 30s lately. I never really wanted Luke Jackson in terms of I didn't want him in my team, but I just wanted the cover. So I don't know. I can't be that disappointed because he's doing his job, I guess. But my biggest regret is probably getting Chad Warner instead of Lachie Neale when they were the same price coming off their buy.
Yeah.
I had the option, and that was actually when we're talking about this being in the public eye and making silly decisions. I saw a lot of people going for Lachie Neale, and I looked at him and I thought, yeah, I think he's going to be great. But I think Chad Warner could be just as good, so I'm just going to get a unique pod for the sake of getting a unique pod.
Yeah.
And that has been horrible. That's probably 500 to 600 points difference just in those two since their buy. So Chad's probably been my biggest disappointment. And I was sucked into – I was easily convinced on him because, you know, I did my research in the preseason. I genuinely thought he was going to break out. So when I saw his first half of the year, I thought, yep, I want to be on this, but hasn't continued.
Yeah. And that's another thing that kind of going back to that first point is when you're in the public eye, one of the things that you have to juggle is running your own side and just doing crazy picks because it's fun and it's your team and you want to enjoy yourself and pick the players that you like, but you also have to sort of not set the standard, but like lead by example, if that sort of makes sense. It's hard to sit here and give structured, sound, meaningful advice and then be like, I'm going to pick this random dude because he's owned by 0.3% of the team and I just want to have fun. You know, like that is also something to juggle with. And that's obviously a big component to the reason that I usually play the way that I do. I took this year mentally to really come in and say, look, last year playing the old way didn't work, playing it slow. So this year I'm going to play it fast and I'm going to see if there's any learnings that I can take between the two and sort of hopefully next year I'll have a better estimation of the model that I want to be going forward with. So it's really cool that you pointed that out, man. The last question I have for you is, how do you think you've adapted your captaincy choices over the season? Like your approach towards the end of the year, has that changed since the beginning of the year? Like if I can make an observation, it felt like every round at the start of the year was individualized, as in like, I reckon player X will score Y, but it sort of seemed, particularly post-buys, that players that have been on a hot streak but don't necessarily have the tippy top averages against the team they're playing tend to get a little bit more airtime because they're in that sort of purple patch. You know, like I'm thinking of like a Lachie Whitfield for this week, like a little bit of chase the car, you get exhausted, as Crouching One would say. do you feel like that has evolved as the season has gone on, and is that deliberate?
Yeah, I think it definitely has changed because at the start of the year, like we don't have any 24 data. We've got 2023 data, but teams and players change and the systems change. So at the start of the year, it was very much kind of a picking the guys that were playing who we thought would be the really bad teams or the teams that would give up a lot of points. So it was quite, and we didn't really have an indication of who was on a hot streak as well, kind of thing. So yeah, at the start of the year, it was very much like, you know, this person is playing Richmond. Richmond gave up a heap of points last week, so let's go this guy. And then it kind of changed in the middle where I actually think I went a bit too far that way in the middle where I was only looking at the team they're playing and I wasn't looking at how that player was going themselves. So, like, for example, I think it was Sarong playing Richmond. I recommended him because Richmond give up so many points. But I didn't take into account that Sarong's 5-round average was 90.
Yeah,
I just expected him to bust out of it because he was playing Richmond. So that was probably gone too far that way. I think I'm now back in a nice spot where I think we do have to absolutely kind of ride guys that are hot and on their hot streak and in form, and then just the ones that are playing the really easy teams, give them a massive boost. So, like, for example, Tristan Cherry is on a massive hot streak. He's just played 2 easy ruckman. I've recommended him 2 weeks in a row. And this week he plays one of the easiest ruckman. So he's going to be one of my top captains again. So it's kind of now molded into a bit of a mixture of definitely looking at guys that are hot right now, but ranking them by, I guess, the ease of the team that they play.
Yeah.
So it has become a bit of a mix, and I mean, I think it's working at the moment. Definitely, I think I haven't added the sums up, but I think most of the players I recommended last week went 120, which was pretty awesome, and I'm very, very excited for this weekend because I've done my captain's research, and I actually think I might even make a call here. I reckon we're going to see the first 2,800 score by a coach this weekend. We haven't had one this year by a coach in SuperCoach, and I reckon it's going to happen this week because there's a lot of juicy matchups. There's a lot of good players playing easy teams, and I think it's going to be a really, really high-scoring round.
You heard it here first. I hope someone clipped it. Pig 2024. We need to ride guys that are hot.
Yeah.
Pig, thanks for sitting down and chatting with me, man. Like the growth that I've seen you have from the start of the season until now is phenomenal, and having you on board the team has been fantastic. So if I don't sit down for another Monday podcast with you, thank you so much for your hard efforts this year, mate. It's been fantastic. And I hope everyone feels like giving him a rating over on Spotify, on mobile, or on Apple, on iTunes. We're at 4.8, and I reckon Pig is at least bringing that up from 4.5 because you've been phenomenal this year, mate. Thank you so much.
No problem at all. It's been a pleasure to join the team, pleasure to be part of Slack, so I'm having a lot of fun.
Thanks everyone for listening. If you do want to find us on the socials, you know where to find us by now. And we'll catch you all in the next episode of the Dr. SuperCoach podcast.